Hello fellow sim racers and welcome to this video. And in this video I would like to talk about the virtual energy, which mainly applies currently for Le Mans Ultimate. Virtual energy can give you a lot of headache, a lot of confusion while playing Le Mans Ultimate. And in this video, I would like to take a proper look at it. Now, I would like to explain it a bit more deeper way and like exactly basically how it's written for World Endurance Championship. And then I would like to tell you in a bit more basic way from my own words how I look at it. Now, World Endurance Championship or Le Mans Series or IMSA if you want to say, is very complicated because you have so many manufacturers with so many different cars, you know, some using combustion engine, some using hybrid power together as well, you know, and so many other things. So it's very hard to make the cars balanced and close together. And the virtual energy is trying to look at it that way, to balance the cars, to be closer together and everyone giving the same pace. In World Endurance Championship or Le Mans Ultimate, the virtual energy is basically the energy that your car has to or can use during your stint. In World Endurance Championship or Le Mans Ultimate, the stint timer is no longer dictated by the size of the fuel tank or fuel numbers. The focus is now about how car uses energy from virtual tank. It's a combination of the fuel used by the internal combustion engine and the torque powered by hybrid system. It's usually measured on the rear axles of the car, but if you have an LMH car, it's on both axles. Maximum amount of the energy that you can use in these cars is around 900 megajoules. If I say something wrong, guys, please just let me know. I'm just trying to like Wikipedia this because it's very complicated and I really wanted to understand it. So I'm very happy to try to share it with you guys as well. In series like IMSA or World Endurance Championship, the stint time prescribed by the amount of the megajoules they can use, I think it's like around 920 megajoules that you can use per stint, is prescribed as a balance of the performance. So each car and on each track has a different values. So basically, they don't care about the amount of the fuel you put into the car properly, but the virtual energy tank is very important in this, and it's very specific. Basically, the drivers, they have to pit for the virtual energy or for the energy, but they are not, they don't care about the fuel that much anymore. That's why in the Le Mans Ultimate, you always try to align your fuel with your virtual energy usage. So you usually pit before you reach zero virtual energy. They measure the virtual energy in a megajoules for the whole stint. The maximum of the amount of the energy you can use per one stint is around 902 megajoules. And it's used for a balance of the performance. So it can be variable or different for each car and each track. The very simply said, if you reach 0.0 of virtual energy, you receive a penalty. That's why it's the most important in Le Mans Ultimate to always try to, well, be above this number, you know, but as much as you can because you waste a lot of time in a pit lane, the more energy you put in. So it's very important to have a good calculation. So when the car is stationary in the pits, they get the virtual energy and the fuel into the car as well. But the virtual energy obviously is just the numbers by the sensors. For the driver itself, when they are driving, I would say the virtual energy saving is very similar to the fuel saving, basically just lifting and coasting. I'm gonna be honest, guys, this is giving me a little bit of headache and a little bit of stress as a non-English person trying to explain the virtual energy like professionally basically, but it's a lot of complication, very like just trying to work together with the balance of the performance for the cars to make it more fair for the racing and stuff like that. But I think it's a pretty cool thing that they work on this, and I think it's also very cool to see when you're watching the TV, for example, with the World Endurance Championship, and you see the percentage of the energy the cars basically have, because now you basically have 100 and 0. And before that, you didn't know if they had like 60 liters of the fuel at the start of the stint and then 0 in the end, you know. So this kind of gives you like a better virtual number that you can understand very easily because 0 and 100, you know. And I kind of like it with the virtual energy, how they work. Okay, now I would like to try to explain it in like a super simple terms. It might be actually longer than the professional ones, but I'm very sorry, guys. If I said something wrong, just let me know in the comments or maybe fix it properly in the comments. If you have a better explanation in the comments, let me know as well, guys. As said, non-English speaker, trying to just help out a little bit. But okay, how do I look at the virtual energy personally in Le Mans Ultimate? It gave me a lot of confusion at the beginning because I did not understand the rules properly. But as soon as you read into it and you're like, oh, this is a balance of the performance. So because some car needs 90 liters, some car needs 60 liters, you know, and they can align with the virtual energy properly because some car is hybrid, some car is just combustion engine and so on. So they put it together. The most important thing in Le Mans Ultimate, you don't want to reach 0.0 of the virtual energy ever. If you reach 0.0, you get a penalty. I think it's like 3-minute penalty or 100-second penalty in Le Mans Ultimate, so you don't want to have to do that. How to avoid this? Very simply. Already in the default setup, you might notice there's a fuel ratio for the energy. So you have 100% energy, and then there is a fuel ratio, which is depending on a car. This is very different, but let's say some car has like 0.88, 0.92, 0.94%, and that's basically the amount of fuel you're putting in a car. This can be important, obviously, in the short race or qualification, where you just want to you can take 100% virtual energy, but let's say 15 liters of fuel for the qualification, right? So you do 3 laps and you can continue. In the race, when you do, like, let's say maximum amount of stint, you obviously take 100% energy. I usually take it all day, always. I usually, like, I'm used to now, on the setup, I have always 100% energy. And I just allocate the fuel differently, you know, like, because you have the fuel ratio. So I know that for quali, I need to do 4 laps. I take 15 liters of fuel on a hypercar and I just go, you know. And then I know already, because I have done 2 laps of practice. And on an MFD, when you're practicing, you can see that you are using, let's say, 3.2 liters and 3.4 energy per lap. So you can just align those numbers in the setup menu, you know. It's usually like something 0.88 to 0.94, depending on a racetrack. Some tracks you use more fuel, some less, you know. And when you find the correct value, then basically just use it all the time, you know, like on those cars. And sometimes you can take a little bit less fuel, a little bit more fuel. So let's say you will do a 45-minute race on Monza. You want to finish that race, and you take 100% energy, and you take a 0.93 fuel ratio, which means you will have, let's say, 80 liters of fuel in the car. But you will always make it to the pit, you know, with the virtual energy being above the fuel. You basically want to have the fuel fuel amount a little bit more above the virtual energy, and therefore then you don't have to worry about it at all. Like, I personally really like the virtual energy in the Le Mans Ultimate. In a way, it's so much easier for me to calculate the fuel, like, because with the fuel you have, let's say, 86 liter fuel tank, and then you're using 321 per lap, and you're trying to calculate how many laps, how many everything. And it can go on and off, right, a little bit. But with the virtual energy, it's always 100% at the beginning. And then you see, like, using 4%, 4.2%. And it's much easier to calculate the fuel during the race as well. Specifically during the race, it's much easier to calculate. Because let's say you want to pit in a halfway through the race. It's 20 laps to go. You don't want to take full tank. And you just calculate, I don't know, you're using 4% energy per lap, so you want to take 80% for 20 laps or stuff like that, if I calculate correctly right now. And then you're done, you know, basically. And then you just watch out with the virtual energy. The virtual energy is very good to fuel save, or like energy save, where you basically lift and coast. After some time, when you get used to this, and when you get used to the ratios, you basically always align the fuel with the energy and for the race, and therefore you never run out of the fuel, and you always just check the energy, you know. And it's much easier for you to see if you can make another lap or not, and how many laps you can do, you know. So you always look at the virtual energy as like a fuel tank, if it makes sense. Always try to align your fuel ratio to your usage of the energy. So you have, let's say, 20 laps of virtual energy left, and you have 20.1 laps of fuel left, and therefore you are good, you know, like always. So you don't have to worry about it. It is very important that the coasting and such can obviously save some fuel, and obviously can save some virtual energy as well. It's always good to go to the pits with like as little as possible, and put as little as possible as well, because the virtual energy, I think, is like a like a full energy pit stop is like 52 seconds or stuff like that. And you can save a lot of time if you're not taking extra lap, let's say, you know, like if you really calculate it. But thankfully now in Le Mans Ultimate, not only you can have a lot of apps, there's a lot of apps like the tiny pedals, and you can use SimHub as well, and some others, but to calculate the energy and fuel. But you can also obviously see in the game that there's a predicted 60 laps to go, and therefore I need that much of fuel and energy. Basically, the virtual energy is always more important than the fuel, but obviously you don't want to run out of fuel as well, right? So usually in real life, they are using, let's say they have a virtual energy and they have a little bit more fuel, so they don't have to worry about it. You obviously don't want to fuel your car unnecessarily, but that's what you want to do, you know? So let's say I do a race, I take 100% virtual energy, and then I'm aligning the fuel to be a little bit of above that virtual energy. I probably said a little bit wrong before, I apologize. Basically, 20 laps of energy, 20 laps of fuel, you know, a little bit more. You can really play with the fuel ratio during the pit stop if you need, or during the setup when you're making the setup. I think if you do like 1, 2, 3 laps, you will have good knowledge of how much fuel you're using. Or if you're using Coach Dave Delta setups, it's already there. Or in the in-game default setups as well, the fuel ratio is already like kind of okay with the fuel, you know. Sometimes you can take less fuel if the race is long, you know. You can take 2 liters less, and you know that you will fuel save during your stint. So it's just important to align these numbers correctly, you know. I personally don't lower the virtual energy anymore in a setup. I basically always use 100%, even when I go to the qualification, because in a qualification I just lower the fuel ratio to like 15 liters of fuel and just take that amount of fuel, and I know it's gonna be like 4 laps of quali, and then I go back to the setup and then put it back to like 0.88 or 0.92, depending on your car and the track and the consumption. And then basically when you have this like knowledge done, you take the virtual energy as your fuel, you know, like as your fuel tank, you know, because I don't look at the fuel anymore when I'm driving. I basically just look at the virtual energy, like how much per lap I'm using, how many laps I can do, can I maximize the stint as long as I can, because sometimes depending on a race, right, on some tracks, let's say you're driving a Ferrari hypercar, on some track you can do 45-minute stint very easily. So let's say you do 90-minute race, right? You can do 45-minute stint, no problem with the virtual energy, but on some tracks you can do only 40 minutes. So you try to like, okay, do I have to pit or can I fuel save? You know, which the fuel saving is basically same, virtual energy saving is the same as the fuel saving lift and coast. When you're driving in a race and let's say it's 10 laps to go, but you have to pit, calculating the virtual energy is much easier than calculating the fuel, because for some reason in-game calculator for the fuel is, or the in-game thing for fuel is always wrong. Like it says you should take 30 liters, but you need 40, you know, and stuff like that. So be really careful on that, guys. In the in-game, the virtual energy calculator, like estimated, is very correct, I would say. Like let's say you need 10 laps of virtual energy, it will show you 10.5 laps of virtual energy, you should take it, you know. But the fuel, it will tell you need 20 liters, but usually it's wrong, you know. So by 2 laps, almost always I notice that the fuel is always wrong. So I always calculate the fuel during the race. Like if my fuel is correct, like let's say I have the fuel aligned with the virtual energy correctly, like with, let's say ratio is 0.92, and I'm having 10.1 laps of virtual energy, and I have 10.3 laps of fuel, then I know everything is fine, you know, I can push, I can drive. And then, yeah, basically when you want to pit for, let's say there's 10 more laps to go, you want to take 10.4 laps of virtual energy, for example, 10.5 laps of virtual energy by your calculation, you know. It's also important, obviously, to understand if you are fuel saving or not, because that virtual energy can go up and down, you know. What I usually do personally, when I practice for a race, I see the race is 90 minutes. If you are driving Portimao, I take a hypercar and I do 3-4 full push laps. Like I push as hard as I can, and it shows me 3.69 virtual energy use per lap. And then I do a bit of a calculation, basically very, very simple, because you have 100 fuel, 100% fuel virtual energy tank, then it's very easy to calculate how much you can use per lap and how far will you make it if you're full pushing in a stint. And then I calculate how much, let's say it's 90-minute race, and I calculated with this amount and this amount, I will make it only 42 minutes, but I don't want to pit twice, right? So I can, on a fuel calculator, lower the number and see how much virtual energy I need per lap approximately to make it 45 minutes. And then I try to focus on that, you know? It's, yeah. So basically, I look at the virtual energy as my second fuel tank, but more important one. And I really like it because it works. It's for a good cause, right? The virtual energy is for BOP. And the good thing is you can also see it from the other cars, right? Let's say you're racing in a race and you can see, as in real life, that the other cars are having 89% or like, let's say 49%, but you are having 50%. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm doing a good job. I'm actually like, I'm going to jump these cars, maybe even in the pits. It's very important because the lower amount you refuel of energy, the faster your pit stop will be. So that's something we might talk in the future about the strategies and such. But I really like that in some races you have to full push and it's all good. But in some races you have to fuel save a little bit and then you can jump the other people as well in the pits and so on. It's very, very important, guys. Guys, I think I got completely lost in this. Please let me know in the comments if I explain it a bit. And yeah, like simply said, guys, it's a virtual energy, is a virtual tank. It's working on the sensors, combining basically fuel used by combustion engine and the torque from the hybrid power, and it's measured by the sensors on a rear axles, or with the Le Mans hypercars, it's on both axles. And they use it for balance of the power, or balance of the performance, to make the cars closer together. And because some car has an 80-liter tank, some car has 60, and they use the amount of fuel, blah, blah, blah. So the fuel doesn't matter anymore, but you always have to work with the energy. It's every track, every car is different, but I kind of hope, guys, that you will understand this a bit, because I'm lost myself almost. But yeah, let me know, guys. Let me know in the comments if this was helpful a bit. At least, please let me, guys, if this was at least a little bit helpful. I feel like I was like, this video I'm recording for 2 hours or 1.5 hours, and I'm just jibber-jabbing about a thing. So I hope I will cut it properly so you to understand. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. I personally really like this virtual energy thing in Le Mans Ultimate, in real life as well, because I think it's, well, it's good, you know, it's good for strategy, good for balance and stuff, you know. And it's also good that you can keep on the other competition, you know? So, yeah. Let me know, guys. Thank you so much.